This is Our View, brought to you by the proud members of the Washington Federation of State Employees, the people who work for you. You can call it the union difference. In this case, a big difference when the people who provide interpreter services in medical situations formed a union. Not only do they get better pay, but they've also gotten respect for their professional standing. Also, the cutting out of what's called middlemen saves the state money and provides better service.
A group of interpreters got together and organized themselves to form our interpreter union, who is now called Interpreters United. And since then, that was the point of change for our profession, because we were able to raise the standard of professionalism that requires to be an interpreter. We were able to raise our pay rate to a decent and livable wage that competes in the actual world. And we were able to obtain respect for our profession and for ourselves, something we didn't have before.
Very pleased when I come home that I am making a decent wage. I'm being treated with respect by the system, and I know that our members have my back.
What I want to mention is, of course, income. We get higher pay, and then I feel like after I joined the union, I feel like I'm not alone. I feel like I have I am one piece of a whole, and I get really presented, and just like a part of a family.
I don't need to have several jobs. I can only leave working as an interpreter. I can support my family. The other benefit is that I'm treated as a professional. Way back when there were the broker systems and the other agencies for profit, we were treated like dirt, pretty much. I mean, we have no benefits, we have no rights. We were just ghosts.
My role as an interpreter, I'm supposed to be invisible. So when I come to the union meetings or I go to my district meeting, I get reinvigorated to that what I'm doing is worthwhile.
The Washington State Labor Council heard from AFL-CIO Secretary-Treasurer Liz Shuler and got the message that the labor movement is stepping up its new technology to counter the higher tech methods of those who are exploiting workers for more profits.
The tech companies know more about our members than we do right now. Are you scared about that prospect? I am. Because they are capturing all of our online behavior, folks. They know a lot about you, and they know a lot about your members, and they're using that information. And if we don't take a huge leap forward on investments in data infrastructure, we are not going to be able to connect with our members in the way that is modern and effective. That's it. That's the bottom line. And this isn't news to you because Washington is the home of a certain company, right, who just last week had Amazon Prime Day, right? This was in the news, people. So the company had this, one day, it was like a 30-hour blowout sale, and they do it to attract new dues-paying members, okay? And then they reward current members. So they used it as a high-profile opportunity to demonstrate their value to their customers. Tens of millions of people shopped, and sales grew by more than 60% from the year before. Where am I going with this? Are there some parallels here? Should we be thinking about ways to demonstrate value to our members in new and different ways? Can you imagine if we grew 60% over last year? Okay? So unlike Amazon, though, the labor movement offers more than beauty products and golf clubs, our #1 seller is a great contract and a voice on the job. And that's right, you can clap for that. All right. Stan, thank you. Stan's leading the applause lines. And we are the only watchdog out there that is sounding the alarms about companies like Amazon and Uber and how they're using 21st century technology as an excuse for 19th century labor practices. That's right. And we will not let them get away with it. The labor movement, yes, we are all about innovation and we are all about disruption. That's the word these days, right? But it must be used as a tool for broadly shared prosperity, not more corporate greed.
The International Trade Union Conference did a worldwide survey of workers and found not a lot of optimism among their numbers. That finding, says General Secretary Sharan Burrow, is reason for the labor movement to change its approach because while the world is richer, people are feeling poorer.
People are deeply anxious about their jobs, their children. 73% of people are frightened of losing their job, and almost 50%, 1 in 2 of the world's people don't believe their children will have decent work. That's a disaster. So if you want to talk about mistrust and why people no longer trust their governments, even democracies, if you look at the studies that Rich Trumper quotes in the US showing that only 30% of young millennials think democracy has been good for them. So we have to do something about the deep anxiety around these questions, around global power, around the realisation from people themselves that if their governments are not prepared to rewrite the rules of the global economy, and 85% of people say that, then their lives are not going to get any better. So the solutions are obvious for us. The social protection floor, everybody should have the benefit of knowing that survivability is a guarantee. That's essential services, public services, health, education, but it's also basic income, unemployment income, child protection, the questions of maternity protection when people are out of work due to the very important task of having a child and seeing them through those precious years. Those issues of the floor, whether it goes to income or care or fundamental services, we're not funding them. The world's richer 3 times than it was 30 years ago, but people are feeling poorer. And then, of course, wages. The OECD this week quoted wages as a major issue. If you're going to do something about inequality and about the feeling of trust and security from working people, 84% of people say the minimum wage is not enough on which to live. So we know that our working people are deeply anxious. We know that that's leading to a withering of trust in democracy, a breakdown in democratic choice, and a fragmentation with right-wing populism that threatens the world as we know it. We must see change, rewrite the rules of the global economy. Let's do something about the impending threats of climate, of joblessness, of income, and indeed of security. Wages, social protection, action on climate, and jobs. That's the answer.
The International Labour Organization, a United Nations agency, commissioned a project to bring to the world the plight of women who work in terrible circumstances. It's called No One Should Work This Way.
I wanted to do this project because I was angry at what I had heard, things that I had seen, and I thought it was really important that other people should see this. The first women that I met when I started this project repeated the same things that I had been reading about for years, 8, 9 years later, and they were saying the same things. I met 3 women who've been called a dog. I met a woman who'd been told that she could be killed and no one would know. I met women who had suffered such staggering abuse. I met a woman who came home in a wheelchair. She had to wheel herself to walk because they were too poor to afford medical treatment. I met a woman who was blind. She'd been made blind because she was hit with a metal pipe. We met another young woman who was perhaps sold or given away to a police official who should have known better. She has no idea how old she was. Couldn't have been much older than the child she was given to take care of. She was possibly 7. She didn't leave until maybe age 18. At one point, we met a pregnant woman who'd been raped. Sexual abuse is common in these situations. And I met people like this because also they were mothers. They went out to be migrants and to work in another country so they could better educate their children, they could feed their children. This woman had been abandoned by her husband. She was having a tough time and she was struggling to educate them, and that's all she wanted was to educate her 3 daughters. And while she was abroad, the family tried to force her into a family-run brothel. And she fought back, and they fought her, and they beat her, and they beat her. Worse, this woman's been abandoned by her family. Once they found out what had happened to her, they spit on her, they wanted nothing to do with her, and they walked away. I've heard about women who came home in a coma. I've heard about women who came home in a coffin. This abuse is lifelong. It isn't just a one-off. It isn't just about hitting a person once. The first step, I think, for change is that these domestic work has to be recognized as work. They need to be treated like human beings. And right now, they're not being treated like human beings. They're being treated like property. They're being treated like barnyard animals, or worse. I think Convention 189 is the beginning of huge change that has to come. Governments need to say to their societies that this kind of behavior and what is going on in the privacy of homes is unacceptable. They need to send a signal. How are they going to do that? It begins by ratifying the convention, and from that flows changes in laws, changes in procedures, and maybe somewhere down the road, changes in attitudes and the way society behaves toward other human beings.
This has been Our View, brought to you by the members of the Washington Federation of State Employees. We remind you, when you accept a paycheck for your hard work, you don't give up your rights. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month.